What do you think of when you hear the word extreme? Some things clearly fit that adjective. Extreme weather, such as hurricanes and tornadoes, certainly do. But what about body deodorant? Does extreme protection really fall into that category? Well, unless it can protect me from a tornado, I say no. Using the word extreme in that context is a marketing tool. In other words, a buzzword. Now the term has become so common that anything from grooming products to snack flavors can be described as extreme.
Pablo el molinero.
Politically, extreme has basically become the go-to description for anyone who disagrees with a certain point of view. For many Democrats, if you voted for Donald Trump, you belong to the extreme MAGA faction of the Republican Party. For many Republicans, if you support higher taxes and expanded social programs, then you support the extremist values of the Democratic Party. The ubiquitous use of the word extreme in political marketing has diluted its meaning. And that brings me to the marketing of the word socialism. In my previous video, I explained that social democracy promotes higher taxation, expanded welfare, and stricter regulation within the framework of the capitalist system in order to further their concept of social justice. Democratic socialists would rather overcome capitalism to control the means of production and achieve their view of fairness. I also explained my perspective by pointing out that Marxist socialism has never succeeded in producing its desired economic effect, and it seems to invariably lead to the oppression of society instead of its liberation. So I think it's pretty clear that I am no fan of socialism as an economic or social model. But if the two models are so different, why do I see danger in using the term social democracy? The term is not a recent invention of the modern Democratic Party. In fact, Europe has a long tradition of social democracy, and their promotion of extensive social programs within the framework of a capitalistic and democratically chosen society aligns well with the traditional Democratic Party ideals. My guess is that American socialists historically avoid calling themselves social democrats because the word social sounded uncomfortably close to socialism, a term that carried a strongly negative connotation in the United States, particularly during the Cold War. The label was considered politically toxic. Anyway, here is something I said in my last video. The thing is, among many newly declared supporters of socialist ideals, I'm not even sure they understand what it is they're supporting, much less the distinction between the varieties or the implications involved. I've seen plenty of man-in-the-street interviews where young people express a positive view of socialism, but then struggle to even define what socialism is. Do you think those same people could possibly say what the difference is between social democracy and democratic socialism? I had to look it up myself. This is where the marketing of the word socialism presents its risk. A 2025 Gallup poll shows that around 2/3 of Democrats view socialism in a positive light. I wonder how many fully understand the implications of what that label can actually mean. Furthermore, I have to ask whether adding the word social to democracy really introduced any new concept. Did this enhancement to the brand represent a genuine expansion of their core beliefs, or was it simply a carefully tested political label with a Democratic focus group? This matters because it blurs the line between social democracy and democratic socialism, and I consider the latter to be dangerous. I don't want to be misunderstood. As a free speech advocate, I welcome all ideas into the marketplace, including every flavor of socialism. Robust debate is healthy. But according to data from YouGov.com, fully 20% of voters are classified as low information. In other words, there are people who pay little attention to politics and often know relatively little about the issues or candidates. These days, 20% is enough to flip almost any election. This isn't unique to one party, but among Democratic voters considered to be the less informed, the most affected demographic is young people. If we are to go down the road to socialism, I would hope that it's the result of an informed decision and not because the word socialism somehow became fashionable. But here's my broader concern. Both major parties have shown a willingness to bend or ignore ethical guardrails in pursuit of power. The GOP leadership largely opposed Trump in 2016 and during much of the 2024 campaign, yet ultimately rode the wave because he was unstoppable. On the Democratic side, opposition to Trump has become their all-consuming focus. For some Democrats, that obsession to defeat Trump has completely overshadowed their policy substance. Those who attach the socialist label to their campaigns are almost invariably running as Democrats or Democratic-adjacent independents. It is worth remembering that some of our most storied anti-socialists were Democrats, Presidents Harry Truman, John F. Kennedy, and Lyndon B. Johnson among them. Socialism was never part of traditional democratic ideals. This is especially true as it relates to our constitutionally guaranteed liberties. Yet today, when asked their opinion on socialism, many Democratic candidates deflect or give non-answers, apparently unwilling to risk alienating an important segment of their base. Once upon a time, the term socialism was considered a political pejorative in America. This was mostly a product of the Cold War era. People equated socialism to the repressive and economically stagnant Soviet system of government. While not solely responsible for the rehabilitation of the word, Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont did openly describe himself as a democratic socialist. Sanders famously ran for president in 2016, where he garnered substantial support, especially among young voters, but he ultimately lost the nomination to Hillary Clinton. Many people believe that the Democratic Party leadership unfairly rigged the election for Ms. Clinton because the higher-ups thought that voters would never elect a socialist for president. And that fear may have been true in 2016. But the strong response, especially among young voters, proved that there was a tolerance and even enthusiasm for some socialist ideas. Add to that the belief that he got scrutinized in 2016 by the party poobahs. That didn't hurt his standing or appeal for those who feel alienated from the political process. For many, the question was, what were they hiding and what else have they been lying to us about? To those people, Sanders was a victim of a corrupt political system willing to take shortcuts to maintain power. For my part, I can't say that contention is without merit. So, was this so-called rebranding of socialism the product of a natural development within a society? Or is it part of an international plot to destroy the spirit of humankind and make us subservient to an all-powerful world government? Join me in my next video, where I'll put on my tinfoil hat and look into it more carefully. This is Pablo El Molinero. Hey, if you haven't, why don't you subscribe to the channel? And if you hit the bell button, you'll be notified anytime we come out with new content. Thanks for watching.